Longhuan Black Jade. A thought stirred in Han Li's mind, and his gaze shifted toward the pile of black crystals he had pushed aside. He had seen that name before in a Grey Realm text. It was an exceedingly precious ore of the Grey Realm, and just as Shi Qinghe had said, it could conceal the aura of Fiend attributes. The only reason he had failed to recognize it earlier was that the book had contained no illustration or description of its appearance. The moment the thought occurred to him, Han Li waved a hand, forcing the surrounding pool water aside. At the same time, a stream of azure light swept out and gathered all of the black crystals before him. He opened his mouth and spat out a ball of blue flame, about to wrap the black crystals within it and refine them. The essence flame Firebird was still asleep, so he could only rely on his own nascent flame. Wait! Your true flame is filled with immortal spiritual power. If you refine it directly like this, it will do considerable damage to the Longhuan Black Jade. Seeing this, Shi Qinghe hurriedly raised a hand to stop him, then flicked a finger. The fiendish qi nearby immediately stirred, surging toward the blue flame and merging into it. The originally bright blue flame quickly turned dim gray, with strands of gray light shimmering through it. A trace of surprise appeared on Han Li's face. The fiendish qi and the blue nascent flame did not clash in the slightest. Instead, they fused together perfectly. Han Li had to admit that such control over fiendish qi was beyond him. He glanced at Shi Qinghe, then formed a hand seal and pointed. The blue-gray flame instantly enveloped the Longhuan Black Jade and began to smelt it fiercely, producing sharp hissing sounds. Time passed little by little. After more than half an hour, the Longhuan Black Jade finally melted and gradually became a mass of black liquid. Han Li's hands moved through a series of seals, and the black liquid slowly stretched and elongated, taking the shape of a pitch-black scabbard roughly the same size as the heavenly fox blood transformation saber. Shi Qinghe pointed once more. The fiendish qi nearby gathered again, turning into streams of gray light that flowed into the scabbard. At once, patterns and numerous runic markings appeared across the surface of the black scabbard. In the blink of an eye, the scabbard was complete. With a gesture from Han Li, the black scabbard shot toward him and with a crisp click, slid over the heavenly fox blood transformation saber. The surging Fiend resentment emanating from the blade immediately diminished, weakening by 70 to 80%. This is much safer now. Many thanks for your guidance, fellow Taoist Shi, Han Li said as he looked at the sheathed long saber in his hand. Shi Qinghe gave a dry chuckle. A trivial matter. No need for thanks. I just helped restrain the great formation and expended quite a bit. I need some time to recover. If you need me to act again, contact me through our spiritual link. With that, his figure turned into a streak of white light and vanished into the heavenly fox blood transformation saber. Han Li paid no mind to Shi Qinghe's coldness. If anything, that attitude reassured him somewhat. After a moment's thought, he flicked his sleeve, sending 7 or 8 black and white talismans flying out. He began chanting under his breath, fingers moving in rapid succession as one incantation seal after another shot from his hands into the talismans. The talismans immediately transformed into streams of black and white radiance that wrapped themselves around the heavenly fox blood transformation saber, forming a cocoon of interwoven black and white light. With the blade so tightly sealed, the fiendish resentment it emitted became even weaker, nearly impossible to detect. Only then did Han Li nod in satisfaction and sweep his sleeve. A hazy azure glow rolled out and collected the black and white cocoon. After dealing with the heavenly fox blood transformation saber, he shot upward and quickly emerged from the pool. He had been delayed below for quite some time, and by now the sky was already fully bright. Han Li closed his eyes and sensed the location of the tower ship. At once, his body turned into a streak of azure light and sped off in that direction, vanishing into the distant horizon. About half a day later, Han Li caught up with the tower ship. He used his concealment technique once more and silently slipped aboard, returning to his room without a sound. Fellow Taoist Han, you've returned. Taoist Xie had been sitting cross-legged there. The moment he saw Han Li appear, he rose to his feet. Was there anything unusual while I was away? Han Li asked with a nod. No. Though Shi Chuankong did come by once. He saw the restriction outside the door, and only sent in a voice transmission talisman. Taoist Xie took out a black talisman and handed it over. Hanli accepted it and probed it with his spiritual sense. A moment later, he crushed the talisman in his hand. Shi Chuankong had not come for anything else. He merely wanted to ask about the Susha pill. Plainly, his current situation was not good. In this fiendish environment, he was already struggling to protect himself. Hanli would have to speed things up. He flipped a white voice transmission talisman into his hand, murmured a few words into it, then made a hand seal and flicked his wrist. The talisman turned into a streak of white light, flew out of the room, and disappeared into Shi Chuankong's nearby quarters. Fellow Taoists, yeah, I'll be entering seclusion for a while. I'll have to trouble you to keep watch here a bit longer, Hanli said as he opened the entrance to the flower branch space with a wave of his hand. No problem, Taoist Xie replied with a nod. As soon as the words left his mouth, Hanli's figure blurred and flew into the flower branch space. He sat down inside the pavilion, closed his eyes, and began to regulate his breathing. He planned to restore his body, mind, and magical power to their peak state before beginning to refine the Susha pill. After more than an hour, he opened his eyes. Once he had carefully reviewed the entire process of refining the Susha pill in his mind, he swept his sleeve. A silver pill furnace appeared before him and settled to the ground. Hanli opened his mouth and spat out a stream of green nascent flame, which wrapped around the pill furnace. Though his nascent flame was weaker than that of the essence flame child, it was still more than sufficient for refining the Susha pill. The spirit patterns engraved on the silver furnace lit up in rapid succession, and the entire furnace gradually turned red-hot, radiating intense heat. Hanli formed a seal and sent out a mass of azure light that wrapped around a stalk of emerald spirit grass and delivered it into the furnace. The spirit grass quickly melted, turning into a clump of pale green medicinal liquid. He waved his hand again, seized another material, and tossed it into the furnace. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, several years passed. Inside the pavilion, Hanli formed seals with both hands. Green flames roiled around the silver furnace before him, wrapping it entirely. The furnace lid trembled ceaselessly, emitting a faint metallic clanging. Hanli stared fixedly at it. A moment later, he suddenly raised a hand and struck out, sending a flash of azure light into the furnace. The green flames around it vanished in an instant, while the lid abruptly sprang open and landed on the floor nearby. A pungent medicinal fragrance spread through the air. Inside the furnace lay 5 Susha pills, each about the size of a longan fruit. A faint smile flickered across Hanli's eyes. He waved a hand, sending out a stream of green light that swept the 5 pills into a black jade vial. With his other hand, he brushed aside his robe and put away the silver furnace. During this period he had refined nearly 20 Susha pills in total, though only intermittently. In the end he still had some Xuanji crystals and Kuluo flowers left, but all the other auxiliary ingredients had been exhausted. The absurdity of having the rarest materials left over while lacking the supporting ones left him both amused and exasperated. Still, what he had was enough to last him for quite some time. Hanli toyed with the black jade vial in his hand, his eyes flickering as though weighing something in his mind. The next moment, his figure vanished and reappeared inside his room on the tower ship. Taoist Xie, who had been sitting cross-legged nearby, opened his eyes and stood up. Fellow Taoist Xie, you've remained outside all these years. Has your body been affected by the fiendish qi? Hanli asked suddenly after giving him a careful look. I'm different from you. My body is a puppet body refined from spiritual materials, not easily corroded by external forces. On top of that, I carry the power of lightning within me, so the fiendish qi here cannot affect me. Taoist Xie replied calmly. That is good. Did anyone come looking for me while I was in seclusion? Hanli asked, visibly relieved. Without a word, Taoist Xie took out 4 or 5 voice transmission talismans and handed them over. Hanli accepted them and scanned them with his spiritual sense, then shook his head. Almost all of them were from Shi Chuankong. Perhaps because Mo Guang, this supposed Shuha clansman, was present, Miao Xiao and her tribesmen had not come to visit again. Mo Guang had also left 1 talisman, using rather indirect wording to ask what they should do next. Hanli walked toward the door, tapping out a seal as he went. The restrictions over the room split apart to either side, revealing a passage. He pushed the door open and stepped out. Then he produced a transmission talisman, murmured 2 lines into it, and flicked it away. It became a streak of black light and shot ahead, vanishing into Imoguang's room. After that, he made his way at an unhurried pace to Shi Chuankong's door, formed a hand seal, and sent a ray of white light into the black restriction outside it. The restriction over the door rippled like water, then quickly vanished, and the door creaked open. "Fellow Taoist Li, you've finally emerged from seclusion. Please come in," came Shi Chuankong's somewhat hoarse voice from inside. Han Li's brows rose slightly as he pushed the door open and stepped in. The door closed by itself behind him, and the layer of black light sealed shut once more. The room was dim. Shi Chuankong sat in the far corner, and above his head floated a silver pipa, the spatial treasure they had obtained from the ruins of the True Word Gate. Beside it floated the silver command banner, covered in silver star patterns, the spatial immortal artifact he and Han Li had acquired together from the restriction at the True Word Gate's entrance. Wave after wave of silver light streamed from the 2 spatial immortal artifacts, forming a spherical silver barrier that enclosed Shi Chuankong within. Around him in midair floated silver formation flags, while the floor was inscribed with countless silver formation patterns, composing an intricate grand array. Outside the spherical silver barrier, there was yet another larger silver restriction screen. Shi Chuankong sat at the center of layers upon layers of restrictions. His complexion was terrible, his hair disheveled, and strands of blood-red light flickered in his eyes. Fiendish qi billowed from his body, making him look like a madman on the verge of collapse. "Fellow Taoist Shi, what happened to you?" Han Li was momentarily stunned by the sight. "It's nothing. The fiendish qi merely triggered the fiendish decline within my body. I hadn't expected the fiendish qi of the Grey Realm to be so formidable. No matter what methods I used to block it, I still couldn't completely keep it out," Shi Chuankong said with a bitter smile. "So you are undergoing the tribulation of fiendish decline as well?" Han Li asked in surprise. "It actually began several hundred years ago, but I suppressed it with a secret technique. Who would have thought it would erupt now of all times? Enough of that. Fellow Taoist Li, have you refined the Susha pill yet?" Shi Chuankong asked, staring at him with intense eagerness. Han Li said nothing. He merely turned over a hand, and a black pill appeared in his palm, faint streams of black qi curling around its surface. Shi Chuankong's eyes lit up. He sprang to his feet, and the silver restrictions around him flashed as a large silver hand flew out and grasped the black pill. Han Li did not stop it, allowing the silver hand to seize the Susha pill. The hand was just about to withdraw when it suddenly halted in midair. "Fellow Taoist Li, what should I offer in exchange for this Susha pill?" Shi Chuankong asked, looking at Han Li even as the fiendish qi around his body surged violently from excitement, making his arm tremble. "We can discuss that afterward. The urgent matter is to refine this pill first and suppress the fiendish qi in your body. Given your current condition, and in an environment like the Grey Realm, once your fiendish decline erupts in full, the consequences will be severe," Han Li said with a faint smile. "Very well. Then I won't stand on ceremony." Shi Chuankong thanked him sincerely, and the silver hand shot back into the restriction. Silver light flickered across the surface of the pipa as it spun in place. At once, the space around Shi Chuankong twisted, and one spatial vortex after another appeared out of nowhere. The silver restriction also flared brilliantly, completely swallowing his body within it. Seeing this, Han Li's brows lifted slightly, but he did not leave. Instead, he found a spot in the room and sat down cross-legged to wait. Time passed little by little. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year went by. The surging silver light suddenly scattered and faded away, vanishing completely. At some point, the silver restriction inside had disappeared as well, revealing Shi Chuankong once again. His aura had calmed, the red light in his eyes was gone, and he looked entirely recovered. "Fellow Taoist Li, many thanks. Without your Susha pill, I truly might have died here in the Grey Realm," Shi Chuankong said, bowing deeply. "You and I are stranded together in this dangerous foreign land. Naturally, we should help one another," Han Li replied with a smile as he rose to his feet. Shi Chuankong looked at him, hesitated for a moment, then produced a square jade box and opened it. Inside lay a stalk of pitch-black spirit grass. A strange fragrance drifted from the herb, and the moment one smelled it, the mind seemed to clear. This is... Hanli recognized the black spirit grass at once, and his eyes brightened. If I am not mistaken, fellow Taoist Li has also cultivated a spirit-refining art. In that case you should have use for this myriad souls grass. I acquired it years ago, and I offer it in exchange for the susha pill you just gave me, Shi Chuankong said, handing over the jade box. In that case I will accept it. This is indeed something I need. Hanli looked deeply at Shi Chuankong, then accepted the box and put it away. This myriad souls grass can enhance spiritual sense, and many people simply consume it directly once they obtain it. In truth, if one can refine it into a myriad souls pill, the effects are even better, Shi Chuankong added. Myriad souls pill? Hanli showed a trace of surprise. Back at the auction in Jukuan City, that supervising immortal envoy had used exactly this as bait to lure out those who cultivated soul-refining arts and needed myriad souls grass to strengthen their spiritual sense. Although Hanli had failed to obtain it then, he had afterward made a point of investigating myriad souls grass. All the information he had found said only that it was to be swallowed and refined directly. None had mentioned refining it into a pill. The myriad souls pill is a formula developed by a great alchemy master of our devil region, only a few million years ago. It has not yet spread to other parts of the true immortal realm, so it is not strange that you haven't heard of it. As he spoke, Shi Chuankong took out a jade slip and handed it over without hesitation. Hanli's eyes narrowed slightly, but he took the jade slip at once. He probed it with his spiritual sense, then withdrew a moment later, a trace of delight appearing on his face. At first glance, the ingredients required for the myriad souls pill were not especially complicated. Once he returned to the true immortal realm, gathering them would be easy. Moreover, according to the formula, refining myriad souls grass into the myriad souls pill truly did enhance its effects by a fair margin. For Hanli, this was naturally an unexpected delight. Fellow Taoist Li, do you have any more of the susha pills you refined this time? Could you sell me a few more? I no longer have any additional myriad souls grass, but back at the Jukuan City auction, that stock sold for 3,500 Immortal Origin Stones. I am willing to pay that same price, Shi Chuankong asked hopefully. I lack sufficient materials, so I only refined a small batch this time. I also need these pills to protect my life, so I can sell you only 5, Hanli said after a brief pause. 5 it is then. A flicker of disappointment crossed Shi Chuankong's eyes, but he raised a hand and waved it. With a clattering sound, a small pile of Immortal Origin Stones appeared on the floor beside him. Hanli swept his spiritual sense over the stones, then put them away. After that he took out a black jade vial and tossed it to Shi Chuankong. Shi Chuankong pulled the stopper and found 6 susha pills inside. I won't take the myriad souls pill formula for free. Consider 1 susha pill payment for it, Hanli said lightly. In that case I shall gladly accept. Shi Chuankong laughed heartily. A great weight seemed to lift from his heart, and some of his former proud and carefree bearing returned. After chatting a little longer, Hanli took his leave and returned to his own room. Though he still had a fair number of susha pills on him, he dared not linger outside. He immediately entered the flower branch space to cultivate, reducing the fiendish cheese erosion and assimilation of his body. Several more years passed in the blink of an eye, and at last the enormous tower ship arrived at the main city of the Blacktooth domain, Blacktooth City. Blacktooth City was not small, comparable to some of the medium-sized cities in the true immortal realm. It had no shortage of residents, and there were quite a few shops as well, though it still could not compare to many cities of the true immortal realm. The tower ship circled briefly in midair before descending before a towering mansion within the city. Hanli and the others disembarked one by one. Hanli had not wanted to leave the flower branch space, but the 3 of them were currently serving as guest elders of the 3 Miao tribe. Since they were now to pay respects to the Blacktooth domain lord, they had no choice but to appear in person. Still, all 3 concealed their auras and did nothing to draw attention. Lord of the 3 Miao, you've arrived. The domain lord is waiting inside, and the other lords have all already come, said a man in black robes with scales on his face as he hurried out of the mansion to greet them. Oh, they all arrived so quickly? Then lead the way, Miao Gao said, flicking his hand. The black-robed man acknowledged the order and went on ahead, leading them into the mansion and quickly into a great hall. At the front of the hall was a trapezoidal stone platform rising about 5 feet above the ground. Sitting upon it was a burly man with black hair and a bristling beard. His frame was enormous, easily twice the size of an ordinary person. He wore a black robe embroidered with gold, and his muscles bulged so powerfully that they stretched the fabric tight. His immense, powerful body radiated a palpable pressure. Below the dais, 4 stone chairs stood to either side. All were occupied save the last chair on the left. Behind each of the 7 seated figures stood 4 or 5 attendants. That was the sight that greeted Han Li and the others as they entered. "Your subordinate Miao Gao pays respects to the domain lord," Miao Gao said with a bow. Han Li and the other 5 also bowed and offered their salutations. The black-robed giant on the platform gave a slight nod. His gaze swept over Han Li and the other 2 like lightning, lingering especially on Mo Guang for a moment with a trace of puzzlement, though he did not question it at once. At the same time, Han Li quietly studied those present. The strongest person in the hall was clearly the black-toothed domain lord himself, whose cultivation had reached the middle stage of the Tai realm. The other lords were all golden immortals. "So that is how it is." Han Li lowered his head. From what he could see, the black-toothed domain was a middling to weak small domain in the gray realm, and its overall strength was about what one saw here. He had gained a rough impression of the gray realm's distribution of power. "Miao Gao, why have you come so late? The domain lord and the rest of us have been waiting here for days," said a fat old man seated in the 3rd chair on the left, frowning in displeasure. "A few days ago, during the Tamuda gathering in our 3 Miao territory, the Nishichuo domain suddenly attacked. It took me some time to settle the affair, which is why I arrived late. I asked the domain lord and all my fellow lords to forgive the delay," Miao Gao replied, neither humble nor overbearing. "What?" His words were like a stone cast into a 1,000-layered wave. The expressions of the other 7 lords changed drastically. "I already know of this matter. Miao Gao, in repelling the Nishichuo domain, you have greatly enhanced the prestige of our black-toothed domain. You shall be rewarded later. For now, take your seat," the black-toothed domain lord said calmly, as if he had known all along. "Yes." Miao Gao offered his thanks and took the empty stone chair. Han Li and the others stepped behind him and stood in place. "Domain lord, the date of the 3-domain alliance is drawing near. Now that Lord Miao Gao has also arrived, should we depart at once?" asked another lord, a middle-aged man in black robes. "There is no hurry. I will make arrangements for the journey, you need not worry. Moreover, there are still matters regarding this alliance that I wish to discuss with you all," the black-toothed domain lord said in a deep voice. "We await your instructions, domain lord." The 8 lords answered at once, straightening in their seats. "You may all withdraw first," the black-toothed domain lord said, looking toward Han Li and the other attendants rather than beginning the discussion immediately. At this, the entourages of the various lords all apologized and filed out. Han Li had no interest in such a meeting anyway, and he left the hall together with Mo Guang and the others. "Lord Miao Gao, among those you brought this time, 3 have rather unusual auras. They do not seem to be from your 3 Miao tribe, do they?" the fat old man said after the others had gone. "Lord Lu Hong is sharp-eyed indeed. I was just about to report to the domain lord. Those 3 are indeed not members of the 3 Miao tribe, but Shuha clansmen from the Xiaohao domain. They rendered great service in helping us repel the Nishichuo domain, and may be considered benefactors of the 3 Miao tribe. They expressed a desire to travel to Shura City and witness the grandeur of the 3-domain alliance, so I brought them with me," Miao Gao replied. "Shuha clansmen from the Xiaohao domain." The other lords all started in surprise. "Lord Miao Gao, this alliance concerns the vital interests of our black-toothed domain, and Shura City will be crowded with all manner of powers. Every move there will carry weight. How can you casually bring along outsiders from another domain?" the fat old man said, his brow furrowed in displeasure. "Enough. I see that all 3 carry the guest elder tokens of the 3 Miao tribe, so they may be counted as members of our black-toothed domain. Their strength does not seem weak either. Miao Gao, put some effort into winning them over. If you can truly bring them into our fold, it will benefit the black-toothed domain as well," the black-toothed domain lord said before Miao Gao could respond. Yes, I obey the Domain Lord's command. Joy flashed across Miao Gao's face as he bowed to accept. The fat old man remained somewhat dissatisfied, but with the Domain Lord having spoken, he could say nothing more. After Han Li and the others left the hall, Miao Xiu warned the three of them about various matters to keep in mind in Blacktooth City, and then they dispersed to do as they pleased. Shi Chuankong bade Han Li and the others farewell and immediately plunged toward the city's markets, clearly intending to look for something profitable once again. Mo Guang did not wander about. He returned directly to the tower ship. Han Li, however, was greatly interested in everything about the Grey Realm. He spent some time circling through Blacktooth City, gathering information about the realm, and only then returned to the tower ship and retreated into the Flower Branch space. So the Grey Realm is holding a three-domain alliance? Shi Qingho's voice suddenly sounded in Han Li's mind, just after he sat down in the Flower Branch space. That's right. It seems the three great domains intend to negotiate at the alliance and decide whether the Grey Realm should invade the true Immortal Realm, Han Li replied, his brow twitching faintly. Oh, so that is what they mean to discuss. Interesting. But you are merely a cultivator from the true Immortal Realm. Why would you want to involve yourself in such a matter? Are you planning to gather intelligence? Shi Qingho said with a faint laugh. I am only a minor figure in the true Immortal Realm. Such grand affairs are not for someone like me to worry over. I simply heard that there is a fiend cleansing pool in Shura City that can wash away the fiendish qi in one's body. I am going there in hopes of finding it and using it to get through my fiendish decline, Han Li said, his eyes flickering slightly, making no effort to conceal the truth. So you are looking for the fiend cleansing pool? Then no wonder. I have heard before that such a place exists in Shura City. But don't expect me to be of much help. Though I have a grudge against Dean Changquan, I have never been to Shura City, so I do not know where this pool is. And don't let your understanding of the law of time and your decent strength make you think you can take reckless risks. Let me make this clear first. I agreed to help you, but if you insist on courting death yourself, then don't blame me for breaking our agreement, Shi Qingho snorted. After saying that, his voice fell silent once more. Han Li frowned slightly. He had told Shi Qingho this because he hoped to learn something about the fiend cleansing pool from him, but it seemed the man knew little about it as well. Still, the pool was apparently quite famous. Once he entered Shura City, he refused to believe he would not be able to find out where it was. As for Shi Qingho's warning, Han Li paid it little mind. Their fates were now tied together. Once they entered Shura City, Shi Qingho would have no choice in the matter. Besides, while it would be good if Shi Qingho helped him, Han Li did not truly care whether the man acted or not. He had always relied on himself and would never depend on anyone else. His eyes flickered for a moment, then he closed them. The Blacktooth Domain Lord and Miao Gao discussed matters for 2 days. Early on the morning of the third day, everyone gathered in the square before the Domain Lord's mansion and boarded a 5-story tower ship forged entirely from a kind of pitch-black jade stone. Then they set out. Time passed in a blur and more than 30 years went by. At the edge of the horizon stood a vast black city wall, 100 zhang high and stretching for 1,000 li. Under the evening sun, it cast an immeasurable shadow across the land. Where shadow and light met, a gigantic black tower ship descended slowly. Several dozen figures leaped down from it, but none immediately hurried toward the city gate. Only after the Blacktooth Domain Lord flew down from the ship and put it away with a wave of his hand did the group begin walking together toward the gate. Han Li and his 2 companions wore the garments of the 3 Miao tribe and walked in the center of the procession. So this is Shura City? My, what grandeur! Truly magnificent and extraordinary. Even in the Grey Realm, it must be counted among the great cities, Shi Chuankong said with admiration, his eyes gleaming. Han Li looked into the distance and saw that the city walls were engraved with all manner of strange ancient runes, entirely different from anything in the Immortal Realm. Faint fluctuations of fiendish qi seeped from them. At the enormous city gate, a dark throng of people had gathered, seemingly queuing to enter. While Han Li's group was still more than 100 zhang away, they slowed down. The lines of various tribes entering in orderly succession had already stretched all the way to where they were. With a single glance, Han Li saw that the 3 arched gate openings were guarded by several hundred sentries. Almost all of them wore long gray robes that trailed to the ground, though their feet floated a foot above the earth, making them seem slightly taller than most tribal folk. Every one of them wore an expression of cold indifference. In terms of appearance, they resembled humans to some extent, but from below the eyelids down to the cheeks grew gray-white scales that looked like sloughed snakeskin, making them rather unpleasant to behold. These fellows all seem to be members of the Nine Nether clan? Shi Chuankong remarked after sweeping his gaze over them. Hanli also felt puzzled. The Nine Nether clan was the ruling race of the Nine Nether domain, and its patriarch was the domain lord there. Their status was exalted. Ordinarily, they would never be reduced to guarding city gates. Yet today every single guard here seemed to be from that clan. It was indeed rather unusual. They do not count as true members of the Nine Nether clan. At most they are Nether slaves, an inferior offshoot cast out by the Nine Nether clan. They are a servant race that waits upon true Nine Nether clansmen. In truth, the actual number of Nine Nether clansmen is very small, and nearly every one of them is a cultivation genius, so they are arrogant to the bone. See those few beneath the gate? Those are the real Nine Nether clansmen, Miao Gao said, turning back after hearing Shi Chuankong's words. Hanli looked where he indicated and saw an emaciated old man with hollow cheeks seated on a black chair beneath the gate. He wore a black robe and looked almost the same as the Nether slaves, except his cheeks bore none of the snakeskin-like scales. It seemed as though the old man wished to cow all the gathered tribes before the gate, for he made no effort whatsoever to conceal the terrifying aura emanating from him. It was shockingly comparable to that of a late Tai cultivator. Floating at his side were two others, equally aloof in expression, both dressed in black robes and hovering a foot above the ground. Already tall to begin with, they forced others to crane their necks to look at them. When the various groups under the Black-Tooth domain approached the gate, the leading cultivator merely lifted his eyelids and glanced at them, remaining seated on that black chair without moving an inch. Of the two people floating beside him, one of heavier build drifted forward. "Members of the Black-Tooth domain, follow me. You will enter through the side gate," he said in a gloomy tone. He did not even bother with greetings or formalities, and at once moved to lead them toward the small gate to the left of the main entrance. The Black-Tooth domain lord frowned slightly, a trace of displeasure flashing through his eyes, but he said nothing. The various lords under Black-Tooth domain were far more enraged, cursing under their breath, though none dared raise his voice. This was someone else's territory, and here they all had to keep their tails tucked. They were led to the left side gate, where they saw a long line already waiting there. It seemed to be a group of tribes from some region under the Samsara domain, filing into the city one after another. Hanli and his two companions, along with Miao Gao's group, walked slowly in the middle of the Black-Tooth domain procession. "Fellow Taoist Li, something feels wrong. It looks like they are checking identities here," Shi Chuankong suddenly warned by voice transmission. No sooner had he spoken than Miao Gao also said aloud, "These bastards not only make us use the side gate, they're even checking our identities. What do they take us for?" Hanli turned his eyes forward and saw that at the entrance stood a man holding an octagonal black prism mirror. Its frame appeared to be made of some kind of metal, still etched with intricate patterns, while the mirror's surface was glossy like black crystal. Whenever someone reached the entrance, the man would raise the octagonal prism and inspect that person's eyes through it. Yet at the central and right side gates, no one was being inspected at all. "That thing is called a nether-probing mirror," Mo Guang suddenly transmitted. "It is a type of detection treasure, especially effective at examining changes in fiendish qi. Through it, the condensation state of a person's fiendish qi can be seen at a glance. They can even distinguish race and origin from minute differences in the pupils." "You recognize it?" Hanli asked in surprise. "While the two of you have been looking through Grey Realm materials all this time, I haven't exactly been idle. I read a few books too. There was a record of it in an ancient volume called Records of Curious Goods. Want to take a look?" Mo Guang said with a faint smile. "In your opinion, will our disguise be exposed by it?" Hanli asked, frowning. "This body of mine belongs to a Shuha clansman to begin with, so they will detect nothing amiss. Fellow Taoist Li, you've been plagued by fiendish decline for so long that your pupils have already changed, and fiendish qi has taken root in your apertures. In your case, disaster has turned into fortune. You should be able to pass. But fellow Taoists sure. Mo Guang transmitted slowly. Shi Chuankong's expression tightened, and he fell into thought. The various tribes ahead proceeded through the gate one by one. Though the line looked long, it moved quickly, and before long it was the turn of the Black-Tooth domain groups. The domain lord, by virtue of his noble status, naturally did not need to undergo inspection. He merely displayed the domain lord token representing his faction, and was allowed to enter. After him, however, whether tribal chiefs, regional lords, elders or guest elders, all had to submit to examination by the nether-probing mirror. After passing inspection, the members of Black-Tooth domain did not immediately enter the city. Instead, they all remained with the domain lord inside the gate passage, waiting until everyone had passed through before proceeding together. It was not long before the turn came to the 6 members of the 3 Miao tribe. Miao Gao seemed to be in a poor mood. His face was dark and sullen as he strode out first, submitted to the inspection of the deep probing mirror, and then swept his sleeve as he walked on, not even sparing the Jiuyou clansman a glance. Miao Xiu followed close behind him. She was far more restrained than her father. From beginning to end, a faint smile rested at the corners of her lips, making it impossible to guess what she was really thinking. Fellow Taoist Li, it'll be our turn in a moment. What do we do? Shi Chuankong asked Han Li by voice transmission. Don't act rashly for now. We'll adapt to the situation when it comes. If one of us is exposed, I'll use my methods to buy us some time. You use your spatial secret art to get us out. If that fails, fellow Taoist Mo Guang will cover the rear. When that time comes, whether you want to unleash a massacre or anything else, I won't stop you, Han Li replied after the briefest pause. That's all we can do. To be honest, in a situation like this, the fact that you can still stay this calm and composed is something I truly admire, Shi Chuankong sent back. As the saying goes, soldiers come and generals block them. Water rises and earth dams it. Worrying serves no purpose. Better to prepare several plans and respond as circumstances change, Han Li answered. Mo Guang said nothing. He simply grinned, unconcerned, and nodded. As they spoke, the 3 members of the San Miao clan had already entered the gate tunnel, and Mo Guang stepped forward first. The youth slave in charge of checking identities shifted slightly and floated in front of Mo Guang. Taking the octagonal prism, he raised it before his eyes and looked him up and down through it. A moment later, he gave a soft cry of surprise, lowered the prism and asked, "You're from the Shuha clan. Why are you traveling with the San Miao clan?" At those words, the black-robed elder of the Jiuyou clan seated on the black chair turned his gaze toward Mo Guang. What, is it so strange for someone to serve as a guest elder in another clan? Mo Guang curled his lip and shot back. It would be nothing strange if a San Miao clansman were serving as a guest elder to the Shuha clan. But for a dignified member of the Shuha clan to become a guest elder to the mere San Miao clan, that makes one wonder, the elder said. The youth slave had not even opened his mouth before the black-robed elder's voice rang out. As soon as he finished speaking, a black shadow flickered in front of Mo Guang. The elder had appeared there soundlessly, suspended in the air as if he had teleported. His gaze moved over Mo Guang with utter impunity. He also comprehends spatial law, Shi Chuankong said inwardly, his pupils contracting as his fists tightened inside his sleeves. Han Li's heart also tightened, but not a trace of it showed on his face. A member of the Shuha clan may choose whom he serves as guest elder. What? Does the Jiuyou clan now extend its authority over the Shuha clan as well? Mo Guang asked after glancing at the elder. This is the territory of the Jiuyou clan, the black-robed elder said coldly, enunciating each word. And is this not the site of the 3-domain alliance? Mo Guang asked in return. It is. Then is there any rule stating that a Shuha clansman serving as a guest elder of the San Miao clan may not accompany them to the alliance meeting? Mo Guang let out a cold laugh. Let him in, the black-robed elder said. His figure flickered, and he was already back in his seat. This Shuha clansman has lowered himself. Elder, why bother stooping to his level? Said the lean Jiuyou clansman at his side, bending toward him with a placating smile. Self-degradation, the elder snorted, then closed his eyes again without another word. Those from Blacktooth domain and the other accompanying lords saw nothing especially improper in the scene. Miao Gao even secretly gave Mo Guang a thumbs up, clearly pleased that Mo Guang had vented some of his pent-up anger for him. Han Li and Shi Chuankong exchanged a look, both relaxing slightly. After Mo Guang swaggered into the gate tunnel, Han Li stepped forward and came before the slave. The man drifted over expressionlessly, holding the octagonal prism, and peered toward Han Li's eyes through it. Han Li's face was calm and natural, but every nerve in him was taut to the breaking point. If anything went wrong, he would unleash his time spirit domain at once. "Your eyes," the slave suddenly said, a strange expression appearing on his face. Han Li's heart skipped violently. Just as he was about to act, the man went on. "Your eyes, the color's rather pale. Are you a mixed blood?" At that, Han Li's thoughts stirred. He had read in ancient texts that mixed blood referred to one born of mixed lineage. Such people usually had unusual fiendish qi in their bodies, and this often showed in the pupils, whose color would be lighter or impure. They were always regarded as lowborn and despised. "What business is that of yours? If you're done checking, move aside," Han Li snapped, at the same time deliberately driving the fiendish qi in his body outward to create the illusion of flustered anger and unstable aura. "Go on in," the slave said with open contempt. Thanks to the fuss Mo Guang had caused earlier, the Juyo elder clearly had no wish to demean himself by coming over to verify another case personally, especially not for someone like Han Li, a mere mixed blood. Seeing Han Li pass the inspection safely, Shi Chuankong stepped forward. The slave took the octagonal prism again, and began another examination. Could this be another mixed blood? Strange. The slave muttered. "What is it?" asked the somewhat plump Juyo clansman who had earlier led the Blacktooth domain group, stepping forward. "Elder Inshan, this person's eyes seem rather strange," the slave hurriedly said. "Let me see," said the Juyo elder named Inshan. His cultivation was far above that of the previous inspector. If he checked personally, Shi Chuankong would most likely be unable to conceal himself any longer. "Fellow Taoist Shi, fellow Taoist Mo Guang, be ready," Han Li said inwardly with a sigh. In the hand hidden within his sleeve, a golden sphere of light had already formed, waiting only to erupt outward in an instant. Mo Guang's playful expression vanished. Shi Chuankong was poised to summon his silver peep at any moment. Standing behind Han Li and Mo Guang, Miao Xiu suddenly felt something strange. It seemed to her that the two men before her had somehow changed in an instant. Just then a rough shout rang out. "So those worms from Blacktooth domain are here too? How are you people qualified to come to Shura City for the Alliance? This isn't Bowling Lake, and it certainly isn't some Tamuda gathering. Aren't you ashamed to show up here?" At those words, everyone's attention was drawn away. Even Inshan paused and turned to look. Shi Chuankong quietly let out a breath of relief and glanced sideways. A giant blue-skinned ape nearly 20 feet tall was striding toward them in black-green armor, carrying a baleful black spear. Behind him trailed nearly 100 grotesque-looking members of various races, all armed to the teeth and radiating aggression. The people of Blacktooth domain who had already passed into the gate tunnel all came back out at the sound. "So that's who it is. A pack of trash from Nisichuo domain," Lord Lu Hong said with a nasty chuckle. The blue-skinned ape flew into a rage. With a thrust of his spear, he stabbed straight toward them. His move was sudden, but executed with remarkable control. Though his aura surged violently, the line of gray light condensed at the spear tip was solid and precise, harming no one nearby as it shot straight for Lu Hong's glabella. Han Li's eyes flickered. He realized that the ape was actually a mid-true immortal cultivator, and the fiendish qi on him seemed even stronger than that of the Blacktooth domain lord. This strike clearly carried murderous intent. If it landed, Lu Hong would be gravely wounded even if he survived. At that very moment, a figure flashed forward, lifted a hand, and formed a round shield of black crystalline light in front of his palm, smashing directly into the streak of gray light. A muffled boom rang out. The gray light exploded at once, and the force of the impact made even the Blacktooth domain lord sway slightly backward. "Wu Chongshan, what are you trying to do? Start a battle between our two domains here and now?" The Blacktooth domain lord asked coldly, his expression unchanged. As he spoke, his gaze drifted to the Juyo elder seated before the main gate tunnel, only to find the man resting with closed eyes, as though he had not noticed any of the commotion at all. Inshan had likewise withdrawn to the side, turning a deaf ear and blind eye. The Black-Toothed Domain Lord's expression turned colder. He knew this Juyo elder intended to let things play out unchecked. Mui in the battle at Bowling Lake, who killed my nephew. Hand that man over and the matter ends here, Wu Chongshan said with a snort. Miao Gao instinctively glanced at Mo Guang, only to see that at some point he had once again produced his folding fan and was lightly waving it, looking like a leisurely spectator with no intention of stepping forward, and not the slightest trace of fear. That bastard dared invade my Black-Toothed domain. He deserved to die, Mui replied with a sneer. As the conflict flared, not only did the left side tunnel become jammed, but people from the other two tunnels crowded over as well. In an instant the scene grew chaotic. Taking advantage of the distraction, Shi Chuankong slipped over to Han Li and Mo Guang. You seek death, Wu Chongshan roared, about to make his move. Fellow Taoist Mo Guang, if this goes on and draws even stronger figures here, it'll become troublesome to clean up, Han Li sent quietly. I killed him. So what? Mo Guang said as he snapped his folding fan shut and stepped forward. At the same time, an aura comparable to that of a mid-true immortal cultivator burst from him, and rolling black mist surged wildly around his body. Wu Chongshan's expression changed drastically. He had only known of one true immortal-level cultivator in Black-Toothed domain, namely Mu Yi. Who could have imagined that another would suddenly appear now, one whose aura was no weaker than his own? Yet under the gaze of so many onlookers, he was riding a tiger he could not dismount. Naturally he refused to retreat. With a furious roar he prepared to attack Mo Guang, while the people of Nisichuo domain behind him also stepped forward, fiendish chi pouring from every one of them. A smile curved at the corner of Mo Guang's mouth. Gray light flashed in his eyes, and his body had already begun to blur like smoke, on the verge of dispersing. Mu Yi's gaze flickered as he too strode forward with the people of Black-Toothed domain. A massacre was on the verge of breaking out. Enough. At last, the black-robed Juyo elder who had been feigning sleep opened his mouth. His shout rang out like a great bell, resounding in every person's sea of consciousness and suppressing all four directions at once. Shura City is not a place for your private feuds and lawless brawling. Return at once to your own proper paths, or be expelled from Juyo domain immediately. His words gave Wu Chongshan a way to step down. The latter immediately bowed and withdrew to the right side gate tunnel. After exchanging a glance with them, the people of Black-Toothed domain also retreated into their tunnel. Thanks to that disturbance, Elder Inshan forgot all about examining Shi Chuankong, allowing him to slip into the city under the confusion. By evening, the Black-Toothed domain party had settled into the posthouse palace arranged by the Juyo clan in Shura City. As night was just beginning to fall, Han Li and his two companions went to the entrance of one of the posthouse halls and sent in word. Before long, Miao Gao and Miao Xiu came out to greet them and led the three into the palace where they were staying. After everyone sat around a black stone table carved with patterns, Mo Guang spoke first. Lord Miao Gao, I apologize for disturbing you at this hour. I hope you will forgive the intrusion. What are you saying, fellow Taoist Jiang? If there is something you need, just say it, Miao Gao replied, slightly startled. To be frank, we intend to leave the group early tomorrow morning. We came specifically to take our leave. Why the sudden decision to go? Miao Gao asked, a trace of puzzlement flashing through his eyes. At the side, Miao Xiu's brows drew together faintly. We had originally thought we'd come to see the excitement of the three-domain alliance. But everything we've seen and heard along the way has felt like swords drawn and bows bent. It is obvious that the meeting will be full of shouting matches, and before long there may even be sleeves rolled up and fists flying. That rather dampened my interest. Compared with that, a gathering like the Temuda Assembly, with singing and dancing, is far more enjoyable. Besides, I've heard that the upside-down street in Shura City's Taming District is quite famous. I'd like to stroll through it and see whether I can find a few treasures, Mo Guang said, shaking his head. If that is the case, then we can hardly force you to stay. Still, although Shura City is currently allowing entry to clans from outside the domain, the only districts truly open to outsiders are Duohu, Suishan, and Taming. The other districts are absolutely forbidden to foreign clans. Please keep that firmly in mind, Miao Gao said. A strange look flashed through his eyes and vanished. Senior Jiang, allow me to add one thing, Miao Xiu said suddenly. You entered Shura City under the identity of guest elders of our Sanmiao clan. If you do not accompany us to the Duohu district where the assembly will be held, then if you wish to move about the city, I'm afraid you will have to change identities. Han Li glanced at her. What she meant was obvious. Once they left the Sanmiao clan, whatever they did afterward would have nothing to do with the Sanmiao clan. It was clear she had not truly believed Mo Guang's explanation for leaving. Rest assured, Lord Miao. I simply enjoy traveling. I won't stir up trouble, Mo Guang said with a smile, well aware of her meaning and yet pretending not to notice. Let me say one more thing, Miao Gao added. The various tribes of Jiu domain have long been hostile to the clans under your Samsara domain. And with the disturbance today, it is entirely possible that someone has marked you. So even within the 3 districts open to outsiders, you must remain cautious and guard against ambush. Thank you for the reminder, Lord Miao Gao. We will be careful, Mo Guang said with a gentle smile. After talking for a while longer, the 3 men took their leave. Father, Miao Xiu began after seeing the 3 out and returning, looking at Miao Gao, who had fallen into deep thought. Sure. I know what you want to say. It doesn't matter. There is no way for us to verify Zhanggu's identity in Xiaohao domain, but the aura on him cannot be forged, and his 2 retainers also seem to be hiding their depths. They have naturally come to Shura City for some other purpose. Since we have already decided to cast our vote for Samsara domain, we should still do our best to remain on good terms with them, Miao Gao said, waving a hand. Father, aren't you worried that whatever they truly came to Shura City for might bring trouble upon our Sanmiao clan? I keep feeling those 3 are impossible to read. Even their appearance here seems to carry hidden motives, Miao Xiu asked, her beautiful brows still furrowed. What trouble could there be? As long as they mean us no harm, that's enough. It's not as though they'll go around shouting that they snuck in with our Sanmiao clan. And of course we won't say it either. Besides, don't you want to see someone stir things up in Shura City for a change? We still haven't fully avenged the underhanded sneak attack from Nishichuo domain before. If those people can cause some chaos for Geo domain, wouldn't that be quite satisfying? What we really need to think about is how to explain it to the domain lord afterward, Miao Gao said with a laugh, clasping his hands behind his head. Father, honestly. Miao Xiu looked at him, usually so stern and severe, now wearing the rare expression of someone happily waiting to watch a good show, and could not help but chide him. Before dawn the next morning, Han Li and his 2 companions left the post house and headed north along the city streets. Han Li had already heard Miao Gao describe the vastness of Geo City on the road. It was divided into 9 great districts, covering more than 100,000 miles. Though it was called a city, it was in truth comparable to an entire mortal kingdom. Suishan district, in particular, was directly formed around a towering peak thousands of feet high rising from within the city itself. Castles stood across its slopes, fiendish qi steamed into the air, and from afar it looked almost like a small sect mountain. The post house where they had been staying was merely one of the entrances to Shura City, adjoining the 3 districts of Duohu, Taming, and Suishan. To reach the other areas, one first had to pass through these 3 districts. The streets were crowded with people coming and going, yet not many like Han Li and the others actually walked with their feet on the ground. Most hovered about a foot above it and drifted along. Though their appearances were broadly similar to humans, tall and short, fat and thin in all combinations, their faces all wore the same cold expression. From time to time they cast glances at outsiders like Han Li, and their eyes were full of indifference and hostility. Even though I've already seen quite a few of them, I still can't get over how these you slaves all look like hanged ghosts. They're thoroughly unpleasant, Mo Guang said with open disgust. He too had changed into a loose black cloak. The Juyo clan really is as xenophobic as fellow Taoists, Bailey said. They don't bother to hide it in the slightest, Han Li said, adjusting the hood of his cloak. Fellow Taoists, Li, we know far too little about the Juyo clan. Are we really going to barge straight into their sacred ground like this? However I look at it, this is a very risky gamble, Shi Chuankong said uneasily. Han Li had not completely concealed the matter of his meeting with Bailey Yan. He had told Shi Chuankong the truth about how the Samsara Palace might offer a chance to return to the Immortal Realm, and about the cleansing fiend pool as well, and had given him two choices. He could travel alone to Samsara Domain and wait for Hanli to return from Juyo Domain, after which Hanli would take him to find the Samsara Palace. Or he could accompany Hanli into Juyo Domain first, and go together to Samsara Domain afterward. As expected, Shi Chuankong had chosen the latter. Whether for his own safety or because of his need for the Susha pill, he had really had no other choice. If this three-domain alliance were not taking place, we likely couldn't even reach Shura City. If we let this chance go, there may never be another one, Hanli said with a slight frown. The Joyo clan seems to take this sacred ground extremely seriously. The information that has leaked out is pitifully scarce. We tried everything along the way and still couldn't learn much of use. We don't even know where it is. How are we supposed to find it? Shi Chuankong sighed. That doesn't matter too much. Let's go to Taming District first. Since there's an upside-down street there dedicated to trade, information is bound to circulate as well. We may even be able to get a map of Shura City, Hanli said after a moment's thought. That's about all we can do, Shi Chuankong said with a nod. Mo Guang walked beside them with his hands clasped behind his back, glancing about at the passers-by in every direction as relaxed as if he were on a leisurely outing. At the summit of the 1,000-foot peak in Suishan district, fiendish qi coiled thickly through the air. On the flattened mountaintop carved by human hand stood a vast and magnificent palace. Before it lay a broad plaza of black stone built along the cliff's edge. Beyond the railing stretched a sheer drop of 1,000 feet, below which black mist churned and rolled like waves beneath the mountain wind. At that moment, two figures, one clad in black and one in white, stood within the railing, gazing toward the distant Donhua district. The black figure was wrapped in an enormous black robe whose surface was covered in dragon-shaped patterns. The trailing hem dragged across the ground under a faint haze of fiendish qi. Beneath the robe stood a tall man floating a foot above the earth. His hair hung loose, his feet were bare, and he wore an ancient bronze suit of armor. At his chest was a savage beast-shaped breastplate mirror mottled with green patina. His face was pale, his features clear and sharply defined. His broad lips turned slightly downward, but his expression remained utterly blank. His gray eyes stared ahead without showing the slightest ripple of emotion. Beside him, the white figure was a very old man with snow-white hair and beard. He wore a high-grade white robe upon which faint shimmering waves seemed to move continuously from the shoulders down to the hem, like the ceaseless surge of the sea, piling soft white foam at his feet. Any cultivator standing nearby would have been able to sense the enormous water vapor rolling from those waves, along with the gentle yet unending fluctuations of water-attributed law. The hazy moisture surrounding the old man formed a wall of mist that completely kept the fiendish qi in the surrounding air at bay. How confident are you about the vote at this alliance meeting? The white-robed elder asked, drawing his gaze back from the distance. Less than 30%, the black-robed man answered coldly. Have that many tribes in Black-Rope Domain already lean towards Samsara Domain? The elder asked, lifting his brows. Those fence-sitters have always been the sort to watch the wind and stand on the wall. Samsara Domain has also been unusually active over the past 1,000 years, so what is strange about that? In any case, the foundation of our cooperation was never built on success at the negotiations. It was built on their failure. So none of this matters, the black-robed man said with a snort. Even so, if you could prevail in the negotiations without resorting to those backup measures, then afterward you could press them with momentum and wear Samsara Domain down little by little. Would that not be better? The white-robed elder said. So you want to expend no strength of your own, sit back and watch our gray realm devour itself, and let us help you consume Samsara Domain's power? Heaven's court is calculating rather loudly, is it not? Feng Qingshui, let me advise you, Heaven's court would do well not to entertain such thoughts, the black-robed man said with a cold laugh. At once blue veins rose at Feng Qingshui's temples. Ever since he had become a Dao ancestor, how many years had it been since anyone had dared to call him by name to his face? But after a moment he forcibly calmed himself and said evenly, In Changquan, Heaven's court will not withhold a single measure of support that it has promised. As for you, this is your Juyo clan's territory. Make sure nothing goes wrong. That need not concern you. Even if your methods fail, I still have other cards to play, Yin Chengquan said, rolling his neck once. Very well. Let us hope our cooperation proves fruitful, Feng Qingshui said coolly. There is something I must make clear in advance. Aside from what is written in our agreement, Heaven's Court had better not do anything extra. Otherwise, do not blame me for being discourteous, Yin Chengquan said, his tone suddenly deepening. Feng Qingshui merely let out a cold snort and said nothing further. Taming District was the commercial heart of Shura City, and also the place where cultivators from all the tribes of Juyo Domain were most densely gathered. Every sort of strange being appeared there, so Han Li and his companions no longer stood out too much among the crowd. There were many famous trading streets and markets in Taming District, but the best known of all was the strangely named Upside Down Street, where a great number of Grey Realm cultivators congregated. After passing through layers of streets and alleys, the three finally arrived at an enormous open plaza. The bizarre races around them were several times more numerous than those they had seen on the way. Quite a few even carried broad black wooden cases in front of them, filled with all kinds of odds and ends, weaving through the crowd like peddlers trying to sell their wares. Honored guests, would you like a fine-grade black fiend snuff bottle? No? Then perhaps a few fiend-drawing ink stones? A must-have for formations and spellcasting. At that moment, a short alien with bluish-black skin and a few wisps of green hair on his head bustled over and began enthusiastically hawking his goods. Han Li frowned slightly and ignored him. Mo Guang had fixed his eyes on a giant black ancient tree in the distance and had not noticed him at all. Only Shi Chuankong stopped with obvious interest and began rummaging through the peddler's wooden case. Little brother, your eye for customers isn't very sharp. With goods like these, you might as well be selling to the lowly Situo clan. Do we look like people who would use such things? Shi Chuankong said, tossing a small delicate black snuff bottle back into the case with a curl of his lip. The green-haired alien laughed awkwardly. My lord, that's not quite fair. These little things may not be top-grade treasures, but everyone can use them, and everyone can use them well. They're practical and inexpensive. That's true enough. How much are these fiend-drawing ink stones? Shi Chuankong asked casually. Even as he spoke, he did not stop walking. The peddler matched him step for step, shuffling backward beside him. If you're using them for formations, you need at least 7 to start. They're not expensive, just 3 gray crystals. If you buy a full set of 21, it's only 8 gray crystals. 8, that's a fair price. What if I wanted 49 pieces? How much of a discount would I get? Shi Chuankong asked with a nod. The green-haired alien's pale gray eyes lit up at once, then he said sheepishly, My lord, I don't have that much stock. Only 35 pieces. I'd charge you just 12 gray crystals. What do you think? Not enough stock? Then forget it, Shi Chuankong said at once, waving him off. My lord, please don't. Look again. See if there's anything else here that catches your eye. I'll practically give it to you for half price, the peddler said, panic rising as he realized the large deal was about to slip away. Shi Chuankong frowned and poked through the wooden case with visible disdain for a moment before suddenly asking, There's really nothing else worth looking at. Say, do you have a map of Shura City? I'd like one. A detailed one. The green-haired alien was so startled that he nearly jumped. First he looked around in every direction, then tugged at Shi Chuankong's sleeve and lowered his voice. My lord, don't say such things so casually. The Juyo clan is narrow-minded. They never allow private sales of maps of Shura City, and they certainly won't sell maps to outsiders. It's lucky you met me. If it had been someone else and they reported to the Juyo clan that outsiders like you were trying to buy a map, you'd be in real trouble. Han Li had seemed not to be paying attention, but he had been listening to the conversation the whole time. At that he too frowned. Shi Chuankong hesitated slightly, then said, There's such a rule? Then many thanks for the warning. You're too polite, my lord, the alien said, flattered. How about this? I'll take all 35 fiend-drawing ink stones. No need to reduce the price. Throw in this black walnut as well, and I'll give you 15 gray crystals. Consider it compensation for your kindness in warning me, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. The green-haired alien glanced at the black walnut Shi Chuankong was pointing at, and delight flashed through his eyes. That's just an immature fiend-gathering stone. It isn't worth much, But since my lord likes it, I'll include it. Since it's rare to meet such a straightforward noble guest, let me add one more word of advice. If you need a map, don't go to the large shops run by the major Juyo clans. Of course, don't ask peddlers like us either. The former won't sell. As for the latter, he gave a dry laugh. You won't get the real thing. Haha, many thanks, Shi Chuankong said with hearty laughter. He took out the gray crystals and handed them over, then stored away the fiend-drawing inkstones and the black object that looked like a charred walnut. Only after the peddler had thanked them repeatedly and left did Han Li ask by voice transmission, "Fellow Taoist Shi, what bargain did you just pick up?" That fool mistook the inner core of a fiend-bone great demon for a fiend-gathering stone, Shi Chuankong replied with a pleased chuckle. A fiend-bone great demon? Han Li asked. That's what the Immortal Realm calls it, though the term may not be entirely accurate. In any case, it's something extremely valuable in our Devil Realm. I saw one once before at a trading house. This one seems to have been scorched by some strange flame, which made the pure fiendish qi inside contract so deeply that it was easy for someone to misjudge, Shi Chuankong said, looking rather pleased with himself. Oh? So that's how this street earns the name Upside Down, Mo Guang exclaimed suddenly. Han Li and Shi Chuankong followed his gaze forward. There stood the giant black tree they had spotted before in the center of the plaza. Hundreds of branches spread from it, and hanging from them like fruit at the tips were all kinds of differently shaped houses and buildings. Because the branches twisted and slanted in every direction, the structures built upon them were likewise crooked, upside down and strangely formed. When the three reached the foot of the tree, they saw a huge doorway cut into the main trunk. Above it hung an enormous plaque inscribed with the words Upside Down Street. They stepped through the doorway and saw spiral stairways rising ahead and to both sides, winding upward through the trunk. At regular intervals there were side doors leading out to the shops built upon the branching limbs. Many people were moving up and down the stairs while many more, clearly familiar with the layout, simply flew directly to whatever level they needed. The scene looked somewhat chaotic, yet strangely efficient. Following the spiral stairway on the left, Han Li and his companions exited through the first door on that side and soon arrived before a rather imposing black hall. Before even stepping inside, Han Li saw that everyone within, from the shopkeeper to the assistants, looked like hanged ghosts. They were either Juyo clansmen or used slaves. He stopped at once, turned and headed toward another branch. After checking more than a dozen of the major branches below, they found that nearly all the shops built there belonged either to the Juyo clan, or to a few major clans within Juyo domain. Very few belonged to any other tribe. In the end, Han Li and the others stopped searching level by level and simply flew straight upward to the topmost tier. The uppermost branches were already too slender to support full-sized buildings, so most of the shops there were small, hanging from the branches like little bells. The three arrived at one of them, a place called Bargaining Studio, and flew inside. There they found only a single shopkeeper, a tall, gaunt man whose skin was a dark gray like coal. He sat drowsing in front of a row of display shelves, holding a delicate little black fiend snuff bottle in his hand. The moment he saw Han Li and the others enter, he immediately took a deep draw from the snuff bottle and roused himself a little. Honored guests, welcome. What might you like to look at? My bargaining studio may be small, but it is full of goods, fair in price, and best of all, everything is negotiable. His words came smoothly enough, but his tone carried a thoroughly lazy air. The shopkeeper is from the Wusong clan, isn't he? How did you end up opening a shop here in Shura City? Shi Chuankong asked with a familiar smile. Han Li had seen information on the Wusong clan in the books he had gathered earlier. He knew they belonged to Wutan domain under Black Rope domain, not to Juyo domain, so their presence here was indeed somewhat unusual. He, honored guests, you have sharp eyes indeed. I truly am one of the Wusong people, though I've merely ended up making a living here after leaving my homeland, the shopkeeper said, a little surprised. So that is how it is. A pleasure, Shi Chuankong replied with a smile. Haha. May I ask what it is you distinguished guests require? The shopkeeper asked again. Shopkeeper, we need a map of Azura City. Might you happen to have one here? Shi Chuankong asked, glancing mysteriously from side to side as if making sure no one was listening. That sort of thing is contraband. It cannot be sold privately to outsiders, Nor may outsiders buy it privately, the shopkeeper said, frowning and lowering his voice as he cast a glance toward the door. Seeing this reaction, Han Li's heart stirred faintly. If you don't say anything and we don't say anything, who would ever know? Goods and money change hands and the deal is done, isn't it? Shi Chuankong said with a chuckle. The shopkeeper seemed hesitant. He brooded over it for a long while without giving a definite answer, while Shi Chuankong did not press him, merely looking over the items displayed on the shelves as though casually appraising them. Buying things was one of Shi Chuankong's strengths, so Han Li wisely kept silent. Mo Guang had no interest in the business at all. He simply stood at the shop entrance and looked down the street. I do have it, the shopkeeper finally said, seeing that none of the three seemed in any hurry to respond. But you know the risk involved in handling such an item, so the price, naturally, has to be a bit higher. Just name your price, shopkeeper. We know what we're about, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. 50 gray crystals, the shopkeeper said. Shopkeeper, this is the sort of thing that has a price but no market. Buyers like us. How many years go by before you meet even one? Shi Chuankong did not answer at once. Instead, he looked at the man with a half-smile and spoke slowly. No need to be anxious, honored guest. Haggling is only natural. Everything can be discussed, the shopkeeper said with a dry laugh. At most 10 gray crystals, Shi Chuankong said. You're cutting the price far too viciously. My map is nothing like the fakes floating around out there. It may be somewhat old, but it is absolutely genuine. There won't be the slightest error in it, the shopkeeper said, knitting his brows. Can you guarantee that the map is real? Han Li asked, lifting an eyebrow. You may not know this, honored guest, but the lockdown of the 9 districts of Azura City only began in the last 2 or 3,000 years. Before that, aside from the soul-washing district, there were no special restrictions on the other areas, and map control was lax. The one I have is one of the few official maps that survived after the lockdown began. Most of what appears on the black market are copies. They cannot be mentioned in the same breath, the shopkeeper said, taking a pull from his snuff bottle and rubbing the tip of his nose. Apart from the soul-washing district, what is special about that place? Han Li cut in. That district contains the sacred ground of the 9 Nether clan. That has always been mysterious. Even members of the 9 Nether clan themselves cannot casually enter it, the shopkeeper replied. If that is the case, then the map is worth 14 or 15 gray crystals, Shi Chuankong said. Anything less than 40 and I won't sell, the shopkeeper said firmly. Shi Chuankong remained unmoved. After a lengthy round of bargaining, they finally settled on 28 gray crystals. When the shopkeeper, looking rather pained, brought out a black stone disc, Shi Chuankong clasped his hands behind his back and showed no intention whatsoever of paying. The shopkeeper was just wondering what this meant when Shi Chuankong looked at Han Li and said, What are you standing there for? Pay up. Han Li could not help rubbing his nose. Half amused and half exasperated, he took the black stone disc and handed over the gray crystals. After Mo Guang refined the stone disc and confirmed that the map inside did not seem fake, the three of them left the shop together. It's only a few dozen gray crystals. Why fuss over it? Once we return to the Immortal Realm, these things won't be of any use to us anyway, Han Li said to Shi Chuankong after they had walked out of Upside Down Street. Fellow Taoist Li, then you don't understand. What I care about is not the gray crystals but the deal itself, Shi Chuankong said with a grin. The moment he finished speaking, Mo Guang's voice sounded in their minds. I checked the map just now. The position of the soul-washing district is extremely unusual. From where we are now, in the Taming district, we would have to pass through the 100 Treasures district and then the Luosheng district before reaching the soul-washing district. Between every 2 districts there are high walls and restrictions, though the exact nature of those restrictions is still unknown. Also, the soul-washing district itself is left completely blank on the map. So heavily concealed, it seems the sacred ground containing the washing fiend pool truly is in the soul-washing district without a doubt. Let us head first for the 100 Treasures district and take a look, Han Li transmitted to the other 2. Mo Guang nodded and took the lead, guiding them away from Upside Down Street toward the 100 Treasures district. Clang, clang, clang. Just then, peals of deep and majestic bell chimes rolled in from the distance, reverberating through the air so that the entire city could hear them clearly. The sound shook the heart, along with the bell chimes, for pillars of white light rose far away and shot straight into the heavens. Each of the 4 was 100 zhang thick, like 4 colossal pillars supporting the sky. Judging by their location, they stood within the Fallen Lake district. Everyone on the street halted whatever they were doing and looked toward the lights. Some who knew one another even gathered together, pointing excitedly at the 4 white pillars. Han Li and the other 2 also stopped and looked toward the radiance. It seems the alliance meeting of the 3 domains has begun, Shi Chuankong said after listening to the conversations around them. Excellent. Most of Azura City's attention is focused over there now. That will make things easier for us, Han Li said, his eyes flashing. The 3 quickly withdrew their gazes and continued forward at a brisk pace. At that very moment, the place where the 4 white pillars stood was a vast plaza in the center of the Fallen Lake district. The plaza was enormous, stretching more than 100 li across. Its ground was paved with countless white bricks. Whatever material they were made from, they gave off thin threads of white mist. The entire plaza floor was shrouded in drifting vapor, but the mist was peculiar. It rose only about a foot before ceasing to drift upward, making the whole place resemble a flat sea of clouds. At present, countless figures stood outside the plaza. More than half were residents of Azura City, most of them ghost servants, while others were attendants from the various races who had come for the alliance gathering. Nearly 1,000 gray-clad armored soldiers stood along the edge of the plaza in a human wall, keeping the crowd outside. At the 4 corners of the plaza stood 4 stone pillars, and it was from these that the 4 beams of light shot upward, growing brighter and brighter. The white radiance upon them whirled in circles, and white runes surged wildly across their surfaces, releasing a vast aura that made the heart tremble. A thunder-like roar erupted in midair. Fiendish energy churned violently, transforming into streams of gray aurora that swept and rolled through the sky. Then, amid the tumbling gray light, there came a booming crash, and a white stone platform suddenly appeared in midair before descending slowly to the ground. The platform stood several hundred zhang tall, casting a broad shadow over the people nearby. At its summit was an open space, and in the center of it stood a huge circular white stone table. Whatever it was made of, the table looked ancient and plain. There was not the slightest trace of restrictions on it, yet it radiated an extraordinarily solemn and august presence. Behind the round table were more than 100 chairs, evidently prepared for the alliance assembly. At the sight of this, the surrounding crowd wore expressions of astonishment and broke into a loud hum of discussion. They had known the Domain Lord's meeting would be held here, but none of them had expected it to take place atop such an open, fully visible platform. At that moment, a streak of black light descended from the sky and landed atop the platform, revealing the figure of a tall man. He wore bronze armor, and though his features were rather handsome, his expression was utterly indifferent. Most striking of all were his gray eyes, in which not the slightest emotional ripple could be seen. It was none other than Yin Changquan, Lord of the 9 Nether Domain. He stood there without releasing the slightest aura, yet the surrounding void twisted faintly, as though everything between heaven and earth revolved around him. At that instant, Yin Changquan was the center of heaven and earth. Everyone present felt their souls tremble uncontrollably. It was a shudder born from the deepest depths of the spirit. Greetings, Domain Lord. The residents of Azura City cried out in unison and knelt to the ground like a crashing tidal wave. The other outsiders also bowed. Welcome, all of you, to this gathering of the 3 domains, which has brought glory to Azura City. I trust everyone already knows the purpose of this meeting. In order to demonstrate fairness, the proceedings will shortly be held here, where all of you may observe freely and bear witness, Yin Changquan said slowly. His voice was not loud, yet everyone near the plaza heard it clearly, as if it had sounded right beside their ears. Hearing this, the people below began discussing again. Domain Lord Yin conducts himself openly and honorably. I admire it, said a clear voice. A flash of black light appeared atop the platform, and 3 figures in black robes emerged. The one in front was a middle-aged man with a square face and thick brows, his skin black as the bottom of a wok. A long dark beard, half a chi in length, hung from his chin as he nodded slowly while speaking. This man too emitted no aura at all, Yet he was perfectly fused with the surrounding heaven and void, faintly standing in opposition to Yin Changquan on equal terms. Of the other two, one was a young man, tall and broad-shouldered, built like a massive bear in human form. The other was an old man with graying beard and hair, his body hunched, a blackwood cane in his hand, looking like rotten wood on the verge of collapse. These two also had skin of pitch black. Those are envoys from the Black Rope domain. They say the people there all have black skin because of the geography and climate. It really is true. That bearded middle-aged man seems to be Vice Domain Lord Xiaobai, Ancestor Xiao. The other two seem to be the Bright King Holy Envoy and the Heavenly Fiend Holy Envoy, among the 13 holy envoys of the Black Rope domain. Both are peerless Great Luo experts. The crowd below buzzed with excitement. Vice Domain Lord Xiao flatters me. Since everyone has trusted me to host this alliance meeting in Azura City, I naturally must be candid and fair, Yin Changquan said, forcing a sliver of a smile onto his cold face. I only hope Domain Lord Yin does not forget those words, said another voice, and once again the void atop the platform flashed as 3 more figures appeared. The speaker was a white-haired young man, astonishingly handsome, yet his expression held an indescribable sorrow, as though he had endured endless heartbreak. He gave off the feeling of one whose grief had reached the point where nothing more could wound him. Behind him stood 2 others. One was a middle-aged man with ordinary features, but his body was tall and powerfully built, clad in black armor. His enormous figure stood like an iron tower, giving the impression of mountain-like steadiness. The other was a woman in a white dress, slender and graceful, also extremely beautiful. But her eyes were somewhat narrow, lending her an air of sharp coldness. If Han Li had been present, he would have recognized her at once. She was none other than Jiao San. Those are people from the reincarnation domain. That white-haired man is the famous Huang Fuyu. So that is Huang Fuyu, the former domain lord of Jinnan domain. They say he and Palace Master Sinew of the reincarnation domain were once lovers. She perished in the battle against the heavenly court of the true Immortal Realm, and after his heart was shattered by grief, his cultivation instead advanced greatly, carrying him into the Tao Ancestor realm. Later, for some reason, he joined the reincarnation domain. That middle-aged man seems to be Palace Master Wuyang of the reincarnation domain, but I've never seen that woman in white before. And her cultivation does not seem especially high, only newly in the Tai realm. With the appearance of Huang Fuyu, Jiao San, and the third member of their group, the crowd below once more erupted in discussion. Most of them looked at Huang Fuyu, and among those staring at him, women especially predominated. Palace Master Huang Fu may rest assured. Yin keeps his word, Yin Changquan said as he turned to face the 3 from the reincarnation domain. Just then, streak after streak of light shot in from the distance and landed atop the platform, revealing one figure after another, all in different attire and of wildly varied appearance. Domain Lord Emozan of the Xiaohao domain has arrived. Domain Lord Shiransong of the Heavenly Chart domain has arrived. Domain Lord Yu Yang of the 100 Battles domain has arrived. These were the domain lords of the remaining medium and minor domains, all of whom had formerly taken their lead from the 3 great domains of the Grey Realm, Nine Nether, Black Rope and Reincarnation. Of course, that subordination belonged only to the past. After this alliance meeting of the 3 domains, with all the visible and hidden conflicts of interest involved, the balance of power was bound to undergo considerable change. Every figure atop the platform emitted a fearsome aura. The weakest among them was still at the golden immortal level. The domain lord of the Black Teeth domain had also arrived, followed by 2 others, none other than Miao Gao and the fat old lord they had seen before. Since all the domain lords have arrived, please take your seats, Yin Changquan called. The various domain lords sat down one after another, while their subordinates took their places behind them. The alliance meeting of the 3 domains officially begins, Yin Changquan said as he too moved to a seat and sat. Clang! The final great bell note echoed through the sky. The majestic ringing gradually faded, and the 4 towering columns of light rapidly shrank before vanishing altogether. Leaving behind the famed market district around Upside Down Street in the Taming district and heading inward, the buildings along the road became sparser and sparser, and even the ghost servants on the road grew fewer and fewer. After putting some distance between themselves and the market, Han Li and the others began deliberately concealing both their auras and their forms as they quietly made their way toward the 100 Treasures district. Though the number of passersby had decreased, the patrol squads of ghost servants along the way had increased. Unlike ordinary ghost servants, these patrol ghost servants all wore black armor that protected only the body above the abdomen, with no leg armor and no shoulder or arm guards, making the armor look fairly light and practical. Most of them possessed exceptionally dense fiendish energy. The leader of each squad was at the Mahayana level, while the others were generally at the body integration or void refinement stage. Since they mostly patrolled fixed routes, avoiding them was not too difficult. Before long, the three passed through layer after layer of patrols and arrived at the boundary between the Taming District and the 100 Treasures District. Like the outer city wall of Azura City, the boundary was marked by a gigantic black wall. Strange ancient runes had been engraved into it, and the whole thing was shrouded in a dim gray mist that made it impossible to see clearly. Above the city gate stood a 3-story black hall. Several hundred zhang to either side rose corner towers, and on the connected ramparts between them, every 10 paces stood an armored ghost servant holding a weapon. Inside the gate tunnel, 2 massive doors were shut tightly. Before them stood 2 bronze-armored giants over 10 zhang tall. Their features were vaguely human, but they were bald, with round eyes, broad square faces, and protruding fangs. They were extremely ugly to behold. At this moment Han Li was hidden beneath a gray rock several hundred zhang from the city gate. Mo Guang and Shi Chuankong were not far away, each likewise concealed beneath separate rocks. At present, all of them had hidden both form and aura with the spatial secret art cast by Shi Chuankong, allowing them to get this close to the gate without being discovered. This more or less matches the information we got from soul searching. There are indeed special restrictions reinforcing the wall, and the 2 guarding the gate should be members of the Bronze Spine clan, one of the more formidable races in the 9 Nether domain. Their cultivation should be above that of true immortals, Shi Chuankong said by voice transmission, glancing at the armored ghost servant corpse lying on the ground nearby. That is not the real problem. The troublesome part is that inside the gate tower there should be a 9 Nether clansman stationed there whose strength is comparable to a great Luo cultivator. It seems he was not reassigned to the Fallen Lake district. Getting in won't be easy, Han Li said, frowning slightly. If I borrow the power of spatial laws, crossing the restrictions on the wall safely is not difficult. The difficulty lies in not being able to ensure that the 9 Nether cultivator will remain undisturbed, Shi Chuankong said, his brows tightly knit. No matter. Use your spatial laws as you please. I will conceal the fiendish energy fluctuations they produce, Mo Guang said with a light wave of his folding fan and a smile. You have a way to fool a 9 Nether cultivator at the Great Luo level? Han Li asked, somewhat doubtful. What? You don't believe me? Mo Guang asked with a grin. A cultivator at the Great Luo level stands far above us in realm. If we alert him, we may not even have a chance to flee. Fellow Taoist Mo Guang, if you are not absolutely certain, do not force the issue, Shi Chuankong said worriedly. Fellow Taoist Han, you should have some understanding of how secret and powerful this body is. But what exactly is miraculous about it, I'm afraid even you do not yet know. Since I dare speak so confidently, naturally it means I am certain, Mo Guang transmitted to Han Li. Han Li hesitated for a moment before saying, I trust you. Shi Chuankong's brows twitched ever so slightly, as though he wanted to say something, but in the end he restrained himself and remained silent. Though I have some confidence, I cannot perform it here. Come. We'll avoid the gate tower and corner towers, and look for a weak point midway along the wall to break through, Mo Guang said, folding away his fan. Han Li and Shi Chuankong both nodded, and the 3 moved eastward soundlessly along the wall. Stop. We're being watched. Han Li suddenly transmitted after they had gone more than 100 li eastward. Shi Chuankong felt a chill run through him at once. He had not sensed anything at all. Mo Guang also showed a contemplative expression, as though puzzled. Brother Shi, fellow Taoist Li, don't be nervous. It's us. A rather familiar voice suddenly called out. Han Li and Shi Chuankong exchanged a glance and saw the same look of surprise in each other's eyes. As the voice faded, a brilliant white flash streaked past. Space blurred and twisted, and 2 figures, one tall and one thin, emerged. The thinner one wore a black robe and had a youthful face. It was none other than Fox 3. As for the other, Hanli knew him even better. It was Bailey Yan, whom he had met before among the 3 Miao tribe. Fox 3? Why is it you? And who is this? Shi Chuankong asked, first startled and then genuinely delighted. Brother Shi, fellow Taoist Li, it has been a long time. This is fellow Taoist Bailey Yan. He also belongs to our reincarnation hall, Fox 3 said with a smile as he walked up. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Imo Guang, and a trace of surprise and uncertainty flashed through his eyes. Bailey Yan, who had come with him, had already met Imo Guang among the 3 Miao and had also heard Hanli mention him briefly, so he was far less shocked. After introducing Imo Guang in a somewhat vague manner, Hanli frowned and asked, "How did the two of you end up together?" "That is a long story. Back when the relic of the True Words Gate collapsed, I was swallowed by a spatial vortex and ended up here. I nearly died at the hands of a fiend-bone demon beast. Fortunately, I had enough pills and Immortal Essence Stones on me to keep myself alive, and I hid all over the eastern part of Fengqiu Domain until I met fellow Taoist Bailey," Fox 3 said, scratching his head. There was a faint hint of embarrassment in his expression. Seeing how different his manner was from his usual carefree attitude, Hanli immediately knew he was concealing something, so he turned a questioning look on Bailey Yan. "After leaving the 3 Miao tribe, I went to Donghua Domain and Fengqiu Domain, where I encountered Fox 3 among the Jia Shark clan. At the time, he had been thrown into a black prison to await execution for stealing one of the clan's secret tribute treasures. Fortunately, the Jia Shark clan had already decided to join the reincarnation domain, so they presented him to me as a gift. After that, he came here with me," Bailey Yan explained with a bitter smile. Hanli was rendered speechless for a moment. He glanced at Fox 3 and said nothing, but his eyes clearly conveyed, "Just as I thought." "Fox 3, I never expected even you would fail," Shi Chuankong said with a chuckle, unable to resist teasing him. "Well, perhaps I was just not used to the local conditions," Fox 3 laughed awkwardly. "That is all in the past. Let us not dwell on it. We should talk about something important instead. Speaking of which, how did you find us?" Hanli asked. "I knew you had come with the 3 Miao tribe, but when I did not see you among them, I guessed you must be here for the washing fiend pool, so I started looking in that direction and found you," Bailey Yan said with a smile. "That is right. We are indeed planning to go to the washing fiend pool," Hanli nodded. "Excellent. Then let us travel together. With more people we will have more strength and our chances of success will be greater," Fox 3 said, rubbing his hands. "That is fine," Hanli said after looking at Bailey Yan and nodding. Although Imo Guang currently had the highest cultivation among the 3 of them, both he and Shi Chuankong still deferred to Hanli. Since Hanli had agreed, neither of them objected. So the group of 5 said no more and traveled another 100 li east before stopping once again. "This should be far enough. If we go any farther east, there will be another beacon tower, and likely another high-ranking 9 nether cultivator stationed there. We should make our move here," Imo Guang said as he surveyed the stretch of wall ahead. Along the wall stood a line of armored ghost servants holding weapons, their eyes fixed sternly forward. The restrictions on the wall serve mainly to reinforce it, and to sound warnings. "If we want to pass through without being discovered, we'll need to get closer," Shi Chuankong said after a moment's thought. "Leave that to me," Fox 3 said. With a flick of his wrist, a round crystal sphere appeared in his palm. As he murmured an incantation and tapped the sphere several times, a layer of 7-colored crystal light spread out from it and enveloped Hanli and the others. After a slight flicker, their figures vanished from where they stood, and even their auras were completely hidden. "Is this an illusion art you are using, fellow Taoist Fox 3? Hanli asked in puzzlement. "One could say so. But this crystal light cannot touch any sensing restrictions, or our presence will be exposed immediately. We do not have much time. Let us move," Fox 3 replied with a nod. Under the cover of that layer of crystal light, the 5 strode boldly right up to the foot of the Black City wall. Sure enough, they attracted no notice whatsoever. The ghost servant guard stood there rigidly, their eyes not showing so much as the slightest ripple. Only then did Hanli relax a little inwardly. "This should be close enough, yes?" Fox 3 asked. "Wait. I need to make some preparations first." As he spoke, Shi Chuankong began taking out formation plates and pieces of fiend-absorbing blackstone, setting them into place on the ground. You can use those to set up a formation? I had thought you bought them only for that demon core, Hanli said, slightly startled. When setting up a spatial formation, one must make use of the local terrain. Naturally, it is better to use what is at hand. In any case, with fellow Taoist Mo Guang here, I only need to teach him how to activate it, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. With that, he bent his head and continued his work. Hanli watched closely. He found that the formation Shi Chuankong was arranging was extremely intricate, somewhat resembling a teleportation formation yet also clearly different. Even with his eyesight, he could not make out much of its deeper workings. Brother Shi, are you done yet? My illusory shadow crystal cannot hold much longer, Fox 3 urged anxiously after a while. It's finished. Everyone step into the formation, Shi Chuankong said, embedding the final formation plate into place, wiping his forehead and straightening up. Han Li and the others immediately stepped into the formation. The circle was not large, but it was just enough to contain all 5 of them. It is not difficult to activate. In a moment, all of you keep your auras as tightly concealed as possible. I will mask the fluctuations from the wall's formation, Mo Guang said after hearing Shi Chuankong's explanation of the activation method. Then he raised one finger, and rolling fiendish energy immediately poured from its tip like strands of black smoke, swirling out to wrap around all 5 of them. Next, an incantation rang from Mo Guang's mouth, and circles of spatial ripples began to rise from the formation beneath their feet. Yet they were held tightly within the surrounding wall of black fiendish energy, and not the slightest trace leaked out. Go! The moment that low shout sounded, Fox 3's illusory crystal light burst apart. The figures within the formation twisted all at once and vanished. Up on the city wall, one ghost servant twitched his eyelids and sensing something, looked down toward the base of the wall. There it seemed a small gust of wind had arisen, sweeping up a cloud of gray-brown dust. He immediately swept his divine sense over the area, but found nothing at all. Nor did the wall's restriction formation show the slightest fluctuation. He shook his head. His expressionless face did not change in the least, and he resumed his former stance. On the other side, the figures of Han Li and the others appeared on a narrow path paved with blue-gray bricks. A moment later, their forms flickered, and they shot silently inward through the city. Perhaps because the alliance meeting of the 3 domains was underway, the 100 Treasures district seemed especially deserted. Most of the buildings were not tall, though here and there stood some towering structures like blockhouses, each guarded by armored ghost servants. In some of the streets and alleys, patrol teams of ghost servants could also be seen coming and going, and now and then one of their leaders had a presence comparable to that of a true immortal cultivator. The security in this 100 Treasures district is clearly much tighter. We will have to be even more careful, Shi Chuankong said, glancing around. I observed just now that the conditions in this district differ greatly from what is marked on the map. The positions of many watchtowers are not marked at all, Mo Guang said gravely. That is no surprise. This map is most likely from before the full lockdown of Azura City. Naturally, any later changes within the city would not appear on it. As long as the roads in the 100 Treasures district are still correct, that is enough, Han Li said, shaking his head. There is nothing wrong with the roads. There are 3 routes leading to the border with the Luoshang district. 2 lead to the city gate, while the 3rd leads to a corner tower in the northwest, Mo Guang said after pondering for a moment. Then let us first go take a look at the corner tower. The gate tower is most likely the same as before, with a great Luo cultivator guarding it, Han Li said after thinking it over. The others naturally had no objections. With the plan settled, they avoided the watchtowers and ghost servant patrols as they carefully made their way through the 100 Treasures district. After they had gone some distance farther in, the number of patrol ghost servants not only failed to decrease, but actually increased. At the same time, there were more watchtowers as well, each with armored ghost servants standing on them and maintaining vigilant watch. The entire district was guarded at every few paces. Even though all 5 of them were people of profound cultivation, in such a situation they still had to remain on full alert and advance with the utmost caution. In the blink of an eye, more than half an hour had passed, and the five finally reached the central area of the 100 Treasures district, where they hid behind a massive building to rest briefly. Han Li's gaze swept around, and his brows rose slightly. He could clearly feel that the air here contained a sudden bone-piercing chill, and a faint layer of frost had formed on the nearby ground and walls. There were no ordinary buildings in sight anymore. On either side of the road stood towering black fortress-like structures, all connected together into a continuous complex. Several huge smokestacks rose from the fortress complex, belching thick gray smoke from time to time. The place looked rather like some kind of enormous workshop. The guards around this fortress complex were especially numerous. From time to time, beams of light also flew overhead, patrolling the area below. There are so many guards here. This building complex must be no simple place. Perhaps it hides some secret of the Nine Nether clan. Fox 3 transmitted to the others, his eyes gleaming slightly as he looked at the black fortresses ahead. Whatever is inside has nothing to do with us. Finding the washing fiend pool is our urgent priority. Fox 3, the situation is not like ordinary times. Do not stir up extra trouble, Shi Chuankong warned immediately, his expression tightening. I know. Rest assured, Fox 3 said with a faint smile. Shi Chuankong still did not seem completely reassured, keeping a close watch on him as though afraid he might cause trouble. Han Li looked at the two of them, then shifted his gaze toward the surrounding black fortresses. With a thought, he quietly sent out a thread of divine sense to probe inside. The moment his divine sense penetrated even slightly into the fortress wall, it was rudely repelled by an invisible force. A flash of surprise crossed Han Li's eyes. He withdrew his divine sense at once and did not force the matter. Boy, do you want to know what this place is for? Shi Qingho's voice suddenly rang out again in Han Li's mind. So you know? Han Li asked by voice transmission, his brow twitching. The wall is laid with the Nine Nether Great Storehouse restriction. Though it is a secret restraint of the Nine Nether clan, it is not difficult to break. I will pass you the method. See for yourself, Shi Qingho said, ignoring Han Li's question and speaking only his own piece. A stream of intent then flowed into Han Li's mind, containing a subtle and profound method for breaking restrictions. Why are you teaching me this secret technique and letting me probe what is inside? Han Li asked, having received the technique, though he showed no joy and merely frowned. But Shi Qingho fell silent again, clearly having no intention of answering. Han Li's eyes darkened. After a brief hesitation, he still decided to release another thread of divine sense and probe into the wall once more. At once, that invisible force emerged again to block his progress. His eyes flickered, and he began operating the method for breaking restrictions. The formerly tough restrictive force quickly softened, then fused together with his divine sense. With a soft sound, his divine sense slipped through with ease and saw what lay inside. A faint flicker passed through Han Li's eyes, but his expression immediately returned to normal. Inside the fortress he had entered with his divine sense was a huge pool, 20 to 30 zhang across, filled with a gray-white liquid that churned violently as though it were boiling. Within the pool were 4 pitch-black iron cages. 2 contained gray realm beasts, and the other 2 held horned humanoids of some unknown race. The 2 beasts emitted shrill screams and struggled madly within the cages, trying to break free, but the cages were extraordinarily sturdy and held them fast. The 2 horned aliens did not struggle or scream. Their bodies seemed to have stiffened, lying rigid in the cages, with only their eyes moving from time to time to show that they were still alive. But their expressions were blank and sluggish. These 2 beings seemed to have been soaked in the pool for too long. Their bodies had turned grayish-white, making them look rather eerie. Besides them, 2 ghost servants stood at the edge of the pool, closely observing the condition of those inside. Han Li was inwardly astonished, but he did not linger over this place. His divine sense quickly spread onward into the next fortress. This one contained no pool, but instead a gigantic furnace. Gray flames roared beneath it, yet gave off no heat at all. On the contrary, they radiated an icy coldness that cut to the bone. And inside that furnace hung several gray-white gray realm aliens and beasts. Streams of gray light poured out from the furnace and rapidly merged into their bodies. The bodies of these aliens and beasts swelled rapidly, as if being inflated, while strange markings surfaced across their skin. Hanli let his divine sense linger there only briefly before extending farther inward. In the blink of an eye he examined more than a dozen black fortresses. Each fortress contained a different method of tempering the body. Boiling in water, burning with fire, refining with lethal poisons. The beasts and aliens of the Grey Realm were tempered one after another in these fortresses, their bodies constantly changing until they became all manner of humanoid and beast-shaped monstrosities. Their auras had grown far stronger than before, yet they had lost their reason and become blank-faced puppets. All of these creatures were imprisoned in giant iron cages and piled together within the final fortress.